We train our consumers on how they can consume and purchase and work with us. And so is that kind of the thing that we want? And maybe the answer is yes, because you're a high volume client, but maybe the answer is no. So I think, again, it's just, there's a little strategy to that.
It's being conscious of, the seasonality you want and the trends that you want to see. And on that note, right, you have to also pay attention to the seasonality of the buyer's cycle with you. So does it make sense for you to do that now? Hey, Sarah, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. So say hi to everyone and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So excited to be here on the podcast today, talking about a very popular topic, a timely topic. And so I'm Sarah Jansel, and I help clients build, brand, and grow amazing websites, primarily on Shopify, but also on Kajabi. I've got a product and service background, having worked in both. So yeah, that's me.
And that's why I wanted to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
So what I want to dive into today, everyone, is Black Friday deals. Do we or don't we? Are they cool? Are they not? Like the hot or not trend right now? Like, should we be doing this? Who should be doing this? And is it okay if I'm not? All of the questions that come up. So let's just dive right in with, do you recommend for your clients, Sarah, that they offer some type of seasonal or Black Friday type of deal for their products and services? And does that differ between them?
Yes, and yes. So I'm going to break it out, I think, into product and service. And I would say, while there's definitely some similarities there in terms of being able to offer things, I think there's some key differences that I want to kind of highlight between the two. So from a product perspective, Black Friday, should we, shouldn't we? There's over 25 macro and micro holidays between September 1 and January 1 that are kind of more your retail based type of holidays. And so what I typically tell clients in this space is, it's not necessarily a should I or shouldn't I? It's there's all of these holidays that you have to potentially consider, and who's the consumer that's actually consuming your products, and what types of holidays do you think would be important to them? And, if you're not sure, obviously there's a feedback component there. You can use social and email and all the things, and different ways to do that. But I feel it's not necessarily everybody has to do that Black Friday. Maybe the 12 days of Christmas is your thing, or it's Hanukkah, or you blow out back to school, or whatever it is. So I think being really strategic about what you're choosing is going to be really important. And I would also say, you don't try to celebrate them all. So that's a really quick way to burn out. And it's also a really quick way to indicate to your consumer that you're a discount brand. And not every brand is a discount brand. So here are some things for folks that are kind of thinking about that and hearing, especially if you're a more of a luxury item. That I would think about for a product base would just be, what is it that you're selling? And especially this year, I know I'm in Canada, you're in the US, our economies are different, but there's still a lot going on on the economic side of things. And so I believe people aren't going to be as spendy in certain areas with certain things this year. And so what I think the trend is going to be, and what we're going to see, isn't necessarily that 40% off, or Black Friday, we're going to blow it out, or Cyber Monday, whatever, it's going to be free shipping, because these things are all costs in our business. But we're actually going to see a lot more, I think, of gift with purchase, or, buy, 100 and save 10, or buy 150 and save this, your tiered, or your BOGOs, or things where people are actually getting value. Bundles are going to be huge. Because it's not going to be such an expensive cost to the consumer and the business. So you still feel like you're getting a discount. In fact, you are getting a deal, or you're getting some value, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that straight percentage. So that's my prediction on that one.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, right. So just different ways to approach it. I actually did some surveys in a ton of different Facebook groups and my Instagram and all kinds of clients and things. And BOGO and free gift with purchase was the highest rated thing this year. So I'm it's going to be interesting to see the types of campaigns, and I'll be keeping an eye on that and reporting on that after, for sure. So that's that. Now, from a service perspective, some of these things are going to ring true as well, right? So what is it that you're doing as a service provider? What types of consumers are actually consuming your services? and what is the brand that you're trying to get across. And again, are you the brand who wants to be somebody that comes out and is like, Black Friday, I'm going to do, whatever discount or whatever savings or whatever on my product? I'm not actually a huge fan of that, because I worry that what we're signaling is like we're devaluing in some cases the thing that we're offering. I don't have a problem when I see a lot of service-based entrepreneurs like coaches and things like that, where they're bundling programs and saying like, I've got like this super program and you're going to get like these four things. And it's going to be this discounted price, or you know what I mean, things like that. Because again, I think it's value for money. Like, you're not feeling so much as, this is all worth $25,000, but you can buy it for, 2,000 for Black Friday. Like, I think you have to be a little bit careful about that, and what message that we're going to send. But I do think that it's totally okay to participate in these things. I think a big thing that we're going to see is how can you support your consumers, if you're a service provider during these times, and are they, the types of consumers that are participating in these holidays, and how can you help them with the readiness, like tailoring some of the things that you do to the things that are happening, like, just all year round, really, not just holiday time, I think is really, really key. And I think we might actually see some interesting partnerships, you know what I mean? And we're seeing a
Mhm.
lot more of like different service providers and partners and things that are kind of working together. So I tend to favor that a little bit more over just, again, just straight discounting all of your things.
Mhm.
Because think about it like Gap. Like, if you're in Canada, if you're in
Yeah.
the US, they do that like Gap days like once a year. And I know people who just wait and they never buy anything until that one time a year, because they know they're going to get between 50 and 80% off. Ask yourself, when you do these things, is that like we train our consumers on how they can consume and purchase and work with us? And so is that kind of the thing that we want? And maybe the answer is yes, because you're a high volume client, but maybe the answer is no. So I think, again, there's a little strategy to that.
And it's being conscious of, the seasonality you want and the trends that you want to see. And on that note, right, you have to also pay attention to the seasonality of the buyer's cycle with you. So like,
Mm-hmm.
does it make sense for you to do that now? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's Black Friday. Yes, there's a holiday going on, but like, does it make sense for your business to offer that right now? Do you offer a particular value right now? Is it a peak time, a slower time? Is there something that's time sensitive that you're offering? Or, and I just had this idea too, like, what are your thoughts on limited time offers? Meaning not in terms of price, but in terms of every year we open up this one thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like the semi-annual sale at those stores, right? Like, we only
Yeah.
sell this one. It's like Bath and Body Works scents. Like, we only sell this scent or this thing during this season. Then it's like, ooh, it's a little bit of that urgency and scarcity element to it, and being a
Mm-hmm.
little themed on the holidays without it being like devaluing your product. I'm assuming that's something
Yeah.
that you've also seen.
Yeah, and actually that's something that we do too. Like, I would say every business is going to have their own form of seasonality.
Hmm.
One of the approaches that we take at Jansel and Co. is that we're trying to help clients be better at the things that are going to pop up in those seasons. So, for example, when we think about holiday time, I start talking about that in July, like June, July, because I'm like, if you got to order stock, there's a lot of supply issues. If you're going to be thinking about what you need to offer, like, we start pumping out programs to help support, and products and services to help support. And we continue to do that. And then, of course, we have people right up until, March that are still working on, we go right from holiday time to goal setting to like all the things, new year, new
Yep.
business. But we try to actually position ourselves a few months ahead so that we're talking about it, people are hearing it, it's resonating, and it's timely. So I think there's nothing wrong with that. And when you think about some of those programs, for me, a lot of that stuff is limited time. So it's like, we're going to do this once a year. If you want to join this program, I've got a freebie right now about maximize your holiday sales. We update it every year. It looks different every year because we're following the trends, we're following the economy, we're following all those things. But you can only get it from this time to this time. And
Right.
some of the offers that might be in that are also a limited time. So I think that's okay, because I think it's seasonal and it's helpful, and it just might be something that you're not doing all year long anyway.
Yeah, I love that. And what are your recommendations though? Like, I'll throw it out there with like professional services, right? So you've got folks who offer services. Maybe they don't have a digital product or a product per se that they can put on the market. What are some creative ways you've seen service-based entrepreneurs offer some type of Black Friday deal or incentive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a few different ones. The one that actually kind of popped out in my mind, and I mean, this is kind of in your realm too, was like around bookkeeping, quite
Mm-hmm.
frankly, right? Or something that we see around like in the beginning of the year, right? Like where they're
Right.
targeting kind of a pain point, like the
Mm-hmm.
closing of the year, right? Or it's tax time, or, and it can be tied to some of these dates because it kind of falls in and around that,
Yeah.
and some of the offers that you might be able to make around that time to help them manage that, right? Like getting your inventory right so it's not a headache, like making sure your tax is on point because tax time is a few months away. Like, again, I think you could do it around Black Friday, but for me, it's less about the holiday and it's more about the need when you're maybe in that realm. Like, I don't think consumers that are out trying to purchase actual products right now are thinking about, a service provider as a Black Friday. I do think they're thinking about them in terms of a need and a pain point.
Totally. Like, for example, if you're a tax professional, right? I've done this before where, like, around Black Friday, I happen to be promoting, if you deposit for your tax return now, it will be like it's a lower rate. It's like an early bird in a
Yeah.
sense. If you want to get on our roster now before the end of the year. So it happens to coincide with holidays, but it's really unrelated to the holidays. It's more the
Yeah.
seasonality of the business itself and the fact that tax season is a quarter away.
Hmm.
Um, and that type of thing. I think it's just consciousness of like the time of year, but I happen to know that like all of that a lot of people are online. It feels super saturated to hear all these different deals going on where you might get a question like, so are you offering anything for Black Friday? Can I Because I feel like people will ask in October around this time when we're recording this, they'll say, I'll wait until see what they're up to, see what they're going to drop,
Hmm.
around Thanksgiving. Uh, you know, do you advise telling folks in advance what you're going to have available, or just kind of like coming out there? Like, how does the planning go into if they're offering some type of like special, a discount, a deal, anything like that?
Yeah.
How do you advise people to communicate how
Oh
it's
my
going to happen?
gosh. Early. So that's like a
Mm,
huge, huge theme. And there's a couple of different reasons for that. You hit one of them like on the head, which is like this market saturation and the fact that, especially around holiday shopping time, like it is the busiest, time of year for consumer spending, if not like right, most. And so
hmm
for that, when there are all of these brands that are in the market, how is it that you're going to actually stand out in that if people aren't already familiar with your brand, b, they kind of know that you're going to have an offer, and c, that you're actually building some sort of relationship with them, especially brand dependent. Like some brands have to build it a little bit more,
hmm
but in reality, most people, like, yes, they're all impulse shoppers, or there's people that see that and they're like, that's like the perfect thing for me regardless of product or service, I'm going to buy it. But most people need to have brand recognition, they need to feel some sort of association with the brand, and that takes time. So when I talk about us going out and starting to talk about these things in like July, we get a lot of new brands that are like, I want to launch on Black Friday. I'm like, great. Sounds great.
Right.
However, you're going to need to start communicating that now. Right. So you don't
hmm
have to have a website right now to start, being on social or email list building, or like, getting out there and doing events, or like whatever it is that you need to do, right? Start making calls and like letting people know. I would not recommend that you do that so close, especially to a particular holiday, because I believe you'll get lost in the shuffle. If you don't have a huge ad spend, like a lot of these big box sort of companies do, like if you're going to compete with like Nike or Adidas or Lululemon or whoever, then I would also tend to avoid it a little bit. And I usually suggest to clients, like, do the early Black Friday, like do like a week before and start communicating it more. Like, I think people want to know. And like, you think of the days back when we used to get like all the flyers, like I've
Yeah.
done, and you'd go through them all and you'd figure out like what's your plan of attack. I think people do that now, like mentally, because they're seeing things online, they know what to look for. And again, we're kind of training them. So I think we need to give
Yeah.
people, regardless of product or service, a little bit of space and some serious communication around it so that they know to actually shop with you. You don't just get lost in the inbox.
Yeah, I would agree. How do you recommend when it comes to communicating, I guess communicating early, but what methods seem to work well in terms of conversion? So is it, I mean, I guess you're hitting it from all fronts, right? Email, social, everything.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to bombard people during such a crazy time, I feel. At least that's my opinion. I get a bajillion emails from
Oh yeah.
every email list. Guys, every email list I've ever signed up for doesn't email me at all during the year. And then suddenly I
Hmm.
realize that I'm on their email list on the Friday after Thanksgiving
Yeah.
because I wake up to like 20,000 emails and I'm like, "Oh, right. I never
Yeah.
unsubscribed from that." So how do you recommend navigating that?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about a holistic marketing plan approach, which is usually my approach, but then also what you just said about email. It's like
Yeah.
the number one irritant. Like to like not be talking to somebody and then just bam, right? I think people are fatigued. It's like I love email. I love certain brands. There are certain brands that I love getting their emails, and I might delete a bunch of them if they're sending it to me every week because I just don't have time, or maybe it's just not interesting to me. But there are the ones that I will open. But I won't unsubscribe from them if they're continuing to communicate with me, A. And B, they're not always trying to sell a product or a service. So, like, what is the value add is what we tell people, that you can actually be offering because you're in business because you're solving some sort of problem. You're in business because you have some sort of solution that's going to make people's lives better. You're going to transform things for the better. So there's probably a million things that you could say about that or teach people or give them something freebie, related or whatever to make their life that much better so that you're top of mind and they're going to keep buying from you. So email shouldn't always be a sell. And you shouldn't be a one-hit wonder, right? Like the bands that we see and they just like disappear, right? So nobody
Yeah.
wants that. And you just highlighted that, right? So I think that's huge. So I think just trying to have some form of regular communication is going to be key there. On the holistic marketing plan, I feel like I've been picking the brains of a lot of our partners that we work with, social ads, marketing strategy, like all the things. And again, I don't think that there's one like place that's going to be a silver bullet. I think again it comes down to like where's your consumer spending their time. So we always tell people that, like, who's your target client? Who are they? Where are they? What kind of content do they consume? Like what kinds of things do they want to see? And then like where do they hang out? Like show up there. So make sure you're there. But then when we think about some of the avenues that are available to us, and I'll just highlight social as one of them, it's like they say like 1 to 3% of people for the most part will see your content there. So it's great that you're posting there. And I actually advocate that you have some sort of social presence because I think most people are like, well, just Instagram it, you know what I mean, or whatever. So you definitely want to be brand building there, but it might not be the place, especially if you're not doing ad spend, especially if it's during some of these busier times where lots of people are pumping money in for you to have the messages go out. So that's where email might come in. Right. And so, like, what are we collecting? Or how about an SMS text list? Right. Like, if that's how they want to consume that. Or, is there some sort of video content? Or are they on TikTok? Or, again, I'm sponsoring a bar for a women's event around that time where, drinks are going to be provided by Jansel and Co. And there's going to be 200 women who are entrepreneurs. Like, I'm going to show up there and do some networking. So, like, and as a service, right? So I think there's lots of different things that you can do. Again, free master classes, value and lead magnets. Like there's all different kinds of things that you can do to take an approach that will lend yourself up to something or some sort of sale or some sort of promotion or launch, that where we can think a little bit more outside the box and not just fit ourselves into, well, I'll post on social. I might send an email that day and that's kind of it. Like I just don't think people love that anymore.
Yeah, I agree. It's you have to position yourself before you promote.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally.
Hmm.
So, what would you say, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here with these, but like maybe like 2 to 3 do's and don'ts if you had to like make a little Cosmo article about this. Like, the do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this when it comes to offering Black Friday deals or holiday deals.
Yeah. So do go back to the who is my client and what the heck do they want? And if you haven't done that work, and there are a lot of brands we work with that are like, why am I not making sales? That's actually where we start. So do the work on that or dust it off and come back out. And so that's a do. Another do is
Mhm.
ask. Like just use some of the methods of communications that you have. And we usually suggest to do this early if you can, because obviously you're going to kind of need a little bit of time to plan, but ask people what they want to see. Because you could plan this great big amazing thing, and I know when I had my fashion brand, here's an example. I was like, oh, I'm going to do, a 40% off on Black Friday. But like, no matter, and I tried different things. I tried 25, I tried 45, I tried free shipping, I tried different things. And it became very clear to me that customers actually wouldn't buy a ton unless it was 25. I don't know why that was the magic number, but people just seemed to think that that was like the thing, and they wanted it on certain holidays. Back to school was a big one for me. Black Friday a little bit, mostly Boxing Day. So like, you have to be open to trying new things when people are telling you some of this feedback. And also, don't forget about what happened last year if you were in business. Like, go back to that and be like, what worked? And if it worked, do I just repeat that, or what do I do to make that better? So I think don't forget about what's happened and what's worked, and use that to your advantage. So, if you haven't been in business, you definitely are going to want to ask. In terms of don't try to celebrate every single holiday. I think that's exhausting. And if we think about how much time I think people need with programs, and I would say even more for service-based entrepreneurs, like people just need a longer lead time to understand who you are and what you offer and what they're going to get out of things. So you might need a month, a couple months, like, it could be more than that. Everyone's got their own evaluation process, but I think what we're seeing is like a little bit more time there. So don't just try to come out and, be like, it's today or it's tomorrow. And I would say don't just rely on one specific form of communication, because I think people may not see it, and or they may want to be hit with it in different ways in different places. So just thinking about how you can get some of those messages across. So I'm sure I said a bunch of stuff before too that was kind
Yeah.
of do's and don'ts, but those are the big ones.
I'm going to add to that. Don't do it just because you feel like you should.
Oh gosh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Not everybody's going to do it. You don't have to either.
Yeah. I feel like
Yeah.
there's a lot of pressure. Like people see
Mm,
other people in their industry, like other coaches, other people who sell courses, other people who are selling stuff online, and they're like, did I miss the bandwagon? What would
yeah.
you say to them if they're feeling like they're having a little like FOMO because they didn't do anything for this season? Like, are they feel obligated like they should?
Yeah, like, I would say don't feel obligated. Like I do see I'm on the list of some coaches and a few people that are out there and they're doing things. And for me, I'm like, that's not really what I want my brand to be. Like I want to focus more on a needs-based business. So, mind you, if there was some form of need around that time that I could promote something, I would. I don't necessarily think that we're going to do a discount or anything around that time. Like I would rather be helping our clients with something that's going to like lift the needle for them, and focus less on like how I can discount my time, and more, of course we're going to add value, but like what is it in terms of like the needs based value. So, that's just me. I also think that it's okay if you do like if there is something
Yeah.
really cool and unique, and like get out there and try something. It doesn't mean, if it works, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You'll probably learn something from that. So I think just give yourself some space to explore it if you're that keen on it, but don't feel like you need to.
I agree with that totally. What are some of the examples that you've seen from clients that were like really super creative, hit the mark, like, oh, that's cool. That's cool that they did that. Or, and you don't have to name names on either side,
Yeah.
or things that just completely crashed and burned and you would recommend no one ever try that again. Or somewhere
Yeah.
in the middle. Like what have you learned along the way? What have you seen?
Yeah. So, one of the biggest things that I think a lot of companies don't think about when it's holiday time is they pour all their eggs into the holiday time basket, and rightfully so, because it's going to be, for most, a pretty lucrative time of year. But what they forget about, it, sort of genre depending, is like oftentimes, especially on the product side of things, like things start to slow down in January and February and March, and then they kind of pick up again, and it starts to kind of move up again in April, because people have already spent a lot of money, and the credit cards bills come in, all the things, right? So, what I like a lot of brands do, and I recently wrote an article on this actually, is don't forget about that when it's actually holiday time, and what kind of value can you offer during this holiday time that will promote something for them to come back. So I'm going to name a big box name because they do this all the time. I don't know if you've ever shopped at Old Navy,
Hmm.
but when you go in and shop with Old Navy, the biggest thing that they've been doing recently is giving you those like Old Navy bucks. So
Okay.
like come back in like 3 weeks and from this date to this date, because you spent, $50 or you spent $100. And I think you get more bucks depending on how
It's
much you
like a
spend.
delayed coupon. It
You've
happens.
got the
Banana does
cash.
it too. It's all under the same roof. So
Yeah.
like they'll say, "Here's like banana bucks," and I'm like, "Oh, that's clever. You're giving me money to use on my next shopping trip,
Yes.
so I come back."
That's right. Yeah. And so like I think the minimum you get is like 10 or $25 or something. And I'm like, name me a couple of things in that store you're going to go in for 10 or $25. Like you're guaranteed to spend like $50. It kind of works like a gift card. Like when you get a gift card and you're like, oh, well, I already have this $25. So I'm going to spend a little bit more because of that. But there's also this thing where you feel like I'm going to hold on to this, like this is worth cash.
Right.
And I think the brilliant thing, and I'm not suggesting everyone has to go and do the bucks, but I think it's like one of many examples where this is some form of value you're giving people that they're like, oh, right. And then they know they got to come back and kind of spend that. And so, what could you do to kind of have that situation happen for you into some of these slower months where people still have the value and they're still coming in and they're still spending the money? Like, I think that's a really creative and thoughtful approach to sort of evening out some of the like highs and lows that the holiday season and the after holiday hangover season can have for people.
Yeah, you can control behavior. You can incentivize when people come in, what
Mm-hmm.
they spend, what they buy, and like shine a nice big spotlight on what you want them to do through your incentives, right? That's kind of what you're
Yeah.
saying is like, let's see, it's going to be a lull this year. Like, what can we do to, to
Yeah.
bring that level up a little bit and encourage people to shop around this time of year and being super
Yeah.
conscious of that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to be huge.
And what about anything that you've seen that like you'd say like never do that again or never try that again or that was a total
Yeah.
misstep or mistake? Um or anyone who's
Yeah.
like just misapplied how to do it.
Yeah, I haven't seen a ton of that. I think what
Mhm.
I've just seen is people who have all these high hopes of things that they're going to do.
Yeah.
And, there's not necessarily been some thoughts and planning around that or like some of the communication. It just falls flat. Like, oh, like I thought I'd give everybody this bottle of shampoo with everything, but like no one cared about it. You know what I mean? I spent all this money, I got like
Yeah.
100 bottles of shampoo. Now I'm just going to have to give them away anyway. Right. Like, so
Yeah,
I think,
exactly.
yeah.
Inventory and like improper
Mhm.
planning when it comes down to it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think those are probably some of the biggest ones. I like when the flip side of that would be, like I work with a lot of apparel brands, or even there's a fitness brand that sells some apparel and things like that. And what the owners tend to do is they like rock the outfit kind of while they're doing some of their filmings and things like that. And then people are like, "Hey, are you going to be selling that shirt?" And it's like these like little mini product placements in some way. And then they start to get a tap on, oh, well, then I'm going to do a poll and see who would like this. And then like maybe I'll bring it out, right? Or I'll take
Yeah.
a design or something that worked last year and I'll just bring it out in a new color so people buy it again. We've got someone that does an elf on the shelf kit, and every year she comes up with different activities for that. So you don't have to think about it, but you're still going to buy her box, even though you already have an elf. You know what I mean? So like those are really smart ideas and they're consumer driven versus just assuming something's going to work. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And, just a reminder, like you have no pressure to dive into the holidays, offer something special for the holidays. You can still be in the holiday spirit and still be directing content the way you should be, respecting the seasonality of your business and not really, you don't have to cave into any other pressure besides knowing what your strategy is.
Yeah.
Um, Sarah, how would you recommend folks navigate this? Like, seek help, advice, and tell us a little bit about what you do when it comes to advising companies on this type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So, I was just talking about free value and how can we get out in front and serve a need. So we usually start talking about different things throughout the year around that time. So you'll see my Instagram feed will be full of it. If you want to get on my newsletter, we send something out weekly there. Usually timely podcast recordings like this are really key to get on and just really start to get out there and talk about some of the trends. We teach free master classes and things on that. So, if people want to, get some advice or reach out, Instagram's usually the best place, or my website, Jansel and Co. Get on that list. Fill out a form if you want to have a conversation. We do free consults, quotes, things like that. So, if there's a way we can help you or direct you to a partner who can, we certainly will.
And remind us again, your specialties are like Shopify, Kajabi, and getting set up on those platforms to be ready to sell, right?
Yeah, we build logos, brands, email marketing, and we're also bringing on a social wing with some of our partners now. So basically, we want to be a holistic shop. If you want to sell your stuff, we're going to help you get that out to market.
I love that. I always love one-stop, like end-to-end integration of the brand, because when one vendor or partner understands your brand holistically and then can apply it through all these different media, it's so great. And that's one of the things I have in my company. So I highly recommend finding someone who can do multiple dimensions of that. So that's perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah, for jumping on the show today. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you for having me, and best of luck on your holiday stuff.
Oh, thank you.